just come in, then they'll be able to get hold of recording or the presentation separately. So firstly, thank you everybody for attending today. My name is Kurt Booth. I'm the EV infrastructure project engineer for Norfolk County Council. I'm here with Peter Strange from the National Association of Local Councils, who's helped me set it up. So thank you very much, Peter, for your help with this. I'm here to talk to you today about Plug-In Norfolk, which is an initiative for the installation and rollout of more EV infrastructure across Norfolk, where we would like to invite parish councils to be part of this. So I can move on to the next slide. Right, so the background to electric vehicles at the moment is that from 2030, as many of you will know, sales of new petrol and diesel cars will no longer be allowed in the UK. Hybrids will be, or new sales of hybrids will be banned from 2035. As you can see from the graph provided, sales of EVs have increased rapidly. So at the moment, there's a total of just over 660,000 in the UK. That's up from just under 400,000 the previous year. So from 21 to 22, that was the jump. And there were even fewer than that previously. So they're becoming more and more common, but charging infrastructure is not being kept up. And that's the difficulty that we're having. So we're looking to accommodate this area. And in 2021, Norfolk County Council authored and adopted an electric vehicle strategy. And the strategy's 6 main aims include the promotion of electric vehicles and the increased rollout of publicly accessible electric vehicle charge points, or EVCPs. Coupled with that, a number of Tier 2 authorities, so districts and boroughs in Norfolk, have declared a climate emergency. So climate change, I'm sure you all know, is widely agreed to be influenced by pollution, which is lessened by zero emission vehicles supplanting ICE vehicles. So according to figures that I have, transport's the largest emitting sector of greenhouse gases, and a journey from London to Glasgow, for example, in an ICE car produces 3.3 times more CO2 than by electric car. So there is a significant difference in these two modes of transport. And Norfolk, as a county whose main income streams include tourism, sees many day trippers and holiday makers from out of the county making trips by road. So you can see where this ties in with Norfolk as a situation itself. So what we've got here is an excerpt from something called ZapMap, which, if anybody hasn't used it here, it's a public website showing EVCPs as registered on the National Chargepoint Registry. So because one of our main focuses is catering for rural tourism, the particular area shown includes most of North Norfolk and some of Kings Lynn and West Norfolk. And this map excludes any home charges or workplace charges. So we're looking at really what you would expect to be public charge points. So the public charge points are mostly shown as the fast chargers, which is 7 to 22 kilowatts. And you can see, looking at the map, that there are, apologies. You can see from looking at the map that there are large sort of concentrated areas, mostly around the large urban areas. And there are sort of vast expanses between which aren't really catered for. So it's a broad area. This is one of the most touristed areas in the county, and there are very broad areas where there's no charging provision. However, this map is sort of an excerpt of the previous one, but the difference is a number of the charge points have been taken off, any which have restrictions on them. So any which are for businesses, where the businesses say customer use only or staff use only, or any which have time restrictions or limitations they can be used on other than dwell time limits. So, and some others are at gated premises, so they can't be used around the clock. So if you look at this map here, it shows fewer charges than the previous ones, and you can see the sparsity of charges that are really public charges that can be used around the clock for anybody. So it really does show the sort of how bereft of charging provision we are in rural Norfolk. And you know, the requirement for the numbers of EVs that we're coming across, more and more EVs on the road, is a concern for Norfolk as a whole. So the current strategies that we've got for EV infrastructure include on-street provision. So we're working with Tier 1 and Tier 2 authorities. So it's basically us the district authorities at the moment, and we're looking at various different ways that we can tackle the infrastructure issue. So these include on-street charge points. You may have seen in the press about Norwich taking on an on-street pilot scheme recently. So these are most suited to urban areas where off-street parking is more limited. But this proposal suitability is limited to certain areas of towns and cities. And there's also a lack of highway space in built-up areas, and that limits the installations you can put on there. So other than that, there are authority car parks, borough and district car parks. So these can be useful, and these are all around the place. These are in villages as well as in towns, but they're not always at locations that suit all users, especially rural residents who don't live nearby to them. And they can also be expensive to install, as they may require new electrical connections. Because at the moment, where we have a model, which I'll tell you about in a moment, that aspect is limited and it keeps things more cost effective. Other than that, we have charging at forecourts. So most forecourt chargers are more commercially viable areas, and depending if they're rapid chargers, they can be quite costly to use. And that can also have an implication on the electricity network, which means there are some areas where it's difficult, if not impossible, to get rapid chargers in. And the final model we're looking at is community installations, such as parishes and local businesses, which is where our viewers today come in. So these are limited by local authority funding and legal issues relating to charging, such as the general power of competence, which I'm sure some of you will be aware of. But Plug-In Norfolk aims to address these issues. So we'll come into that in a moment. So the dilemma that we have about charging, which is limited as so far, is it's sort of a chicken and egg thing with regards to EV uptake and EVCP hosting. So 27% of all greenhouse gas emissions in the UK are from transport, including cars and taxis. Cars and taxis account for about 67% of that percentage. So these have a negative effect on air quality, on environmental noise, and general health and well-being. So as a society, we're aiming to alleviate these issues and move to electric vehicles is one method of doing this. While no method is transport's pollution-free, battery electric vehicles are zero emission at the tailpipe, which does make a large difference. However, we understand that for some, there are obstacles to making this switch. So for some people, these include a lack of public charging points in desired locations. That might be off-putting to prospective EV users who feel they can't rely on the ability of infrastructure. If there's nowhere for me to charge my car, and if I can't charge at home, why would I get an EV? Coupled with this is the fact that even though they're rapidly increasing in number, EVs are still far fewer than ICE vehicles. That's petrol and diesel. So that can be dissuading for potential EV hosts, like parishes and like businesses, who might see EV installation at the present time as a premature move. So taken together, this makes a bit of a vicious cycle, which Plug-In Norfolk is aiming to address. So Plug-In Norfolk is an initiative to provide EV charging to a wide variety of premises across Norfolk. It's the result of a working group between County Council and district and borough and city councils. We've all been collaborating on this, and it will be open to all levels of local authority across the county, as well as to businesses. So what we aim for is to have a network of chargers that provides the same user experience and provides users with confidence in a locally run charging network that is looked after and is valued. So the user experience would include access to a dedicated support line for assistance with EVCP use, and to have the EVCPs themselves sited in the heart of communities and destinations where people live, work, and visit. So for these reasons, we anticipate that, as well as being part of a wider collective of ChargePoint hosts helping to progress a county-wide objective, hosts of EVCPs will see local value added to the local community by providing for an increasing market of EV users who might not currently be catered for. So somebody drives an EV and they know they can recharge in your parish. That's one more reason for them to be there or to not be dissuaded from going there. Grant funding from central government, which we've started to come upon now, means that Norfolk County Council can subsidise maintenance costs for hosts and may even be able to fully finance coverage. And all maintenance and customer support will be handled by a third party on behalf of hosts. So what we're looking to do is try and have these hosted in the areas where they're wanted, but to remove as much of the burden off any third parties as we can. Additionally, all hosted EVCPs will be promoted and publicised as part of a county-wide network, with Norfolk County Council overseeing and maintaining this coverage. So the visibility of EVCPs is maximised, and we will work with Norfolk's district, borough and city councils, as well as involved businesses to achieve this. One of the prerequisites for having a charge point installed using government funded money is you have to put it on the National Charge Point Registry. So it goes on to the likes of ZapMap from the off as soon as it's able to be used. But we aim to look locally at creating a sort of local media network to make sure that locally people know where their local charge point is under Plug-In Norfolk. So some of you may have heard about turnkey solutions from charge point operators who are willing to come in, provide the infrastructure, take on the risk of the maintenance and such and such. So how does this differ from a standard turnkey solution? So it does in a number of ways. Firstly, our approach aims to provide the same experience across all charge points across the county that are part of this initiative, irrespective of the type of charge point. So there are different formats that we can use. You can have wall-mounted charge points, ones which are ground-mounted. You can have different ratings of charge points. So some will be fast. In some areas, we may look to put rapid charge points, and if it's suitable, they would be very few and far between, though. But the idea is that you'd have the same user experience with all of them. So it's better consistency than having different providers for different areas. So if we had a turnkey solution provider in one area of the county, say Kings Lynn, for example, Great Yarmouth, we have somebody different. At least the way that we're looking to do it with Plug-In Norfolk is to standardise that experience across the board. Plug-In Norfolk will be administered by the County Council in collaboration with our Tier 2 authorities. So if any assistance is needed, EVCP hosts will be able to contact another local authority department close at hand. So this is run in Norfolk, by Norfolk, for Norfolk. Plug-In Norfolk aims to be self-sustaining so that the EVCPs provided as part of the model will sustain each other financially. So eventually the whole network is free from external financial dependence. So this will allow us to cater for areas of market failure by subsidising them with revenue from more successful installations. So there may be parishes that want EV capability, but they might not be on the main routes. They might be somewhere which is fairly sparsely visited, but we don't want to discount parishes for that reason. So if we have some installations which are in more profitable, if you'd like to call it, locations, the whole thing is one system. We want it to work for itself. And unlike some other authorities, the County Council has a dedicated EV infrastructure team with existing staff and with more proposed in the near future. And our job is purely the installation, promotion, maintenance, upgrading of Norfolk's EV network and provision of assistance to those who use it. So not all Tier 2 authorities, not even all county authorities have dedicated EV staff, but we do, and we're looking to expand our team to make things easier for people who want to work with us. So what can participants expect from Plug-In Norfolk? So participants can expect for the installation, maintenance, running and customer service to be fully supported from the very beginning. So as mentioned previously, we aim to remove as much of the strain as possible from all hosts and ensure that processes run as smoothly as they can. Access to external funding. So as mentioned, funding has been unlocked by the County Council recently, and there are still other options available, such as NCC funding streams and future grant funding, which is going to become available that we know of. So therefore, we expect all installations made on parish or community property to be at nil cost to the parish, including where possible running and maintenance, but certainly the installation. All EVCPs will be managed centrally by a local operator and overseen by the County Council and Tier 2 authorities. So the back office software will allow the project management to provide usage figures to the host to show what energy has been used, what it has cost and how popular the charge point is by number of visitors and duration of use. So, you know, it's a way of measuring how your charge point is doing, and we will administer that centrally from Norfolk County Council. And for any installations which use electricity from a metered premises, such as a village hall or a community centre, full reimbursement of the cost of energy will be made, and this will be processed in such a way as to minimise any involvement required by the parish or county council. We know that clerks and local councillors have a great strain on their time in dealing with local issues, and not every parish is necessarily a full-time clerk or even full-time councillors. So we want to avoid taking up whatever precious time you do have and work as best we can to take this part of the job away. So eligibility for the scheme. Some of these are based on central government requirements, and some of these are based on our own requirements for the scheme itself. Most of them do take a tack from central government. So publicly accessible off-street car parks in the heart of communities. So we would look for things like village hall or community centre car parks, so near to local amenities or attractions. So if you have a local shopping area in your village, sports centre, if you have a tourist attraction, anything like that, then that's certainly a big plus. Near to residents with no off-street or residential parking, so flats, terraced houses. Some of you might have village squares where the residents park on the square rather than at their own property. So that kind of thing as well would be something that we would look at. Because even though we are initially trying to look at more of a tourist side of this, we are also looking to cater for local residents too, and that's something which central government is very interested in. And as mentioned, preference for village halls, community centres or establishments. Businesses will also be considered too if they're suitable. So one thing which we have looked at is a few businesses which are in tourist areas, something which is locally visited quite a lot and has, as previously mentioned, an open car park 24/7. There will also be a requirement for no patronage to the business. So it would be on the understanding that people will be able to freely use that charge point. A lack of existing charge point provision in the area. So this doesn't necessarily have to mean that there are none at all, but certainly that there is a requirement for more. If there are no charge points in the area, then that's definitely something that we would like to look at first off. Space for providing at least 2 car parking spaces, because our standard charge point format is a 2-socket format. So that could either be 2 single socket wall mounted units or a pillar with 2 sockets on it, but the minimum that we look to install is 2 sockets, so 2 cars charging side by side. An existing electricity supply with spare capacity for a 7 to 22 kilowatt charger. That capacity is something that we can have assessed by an outside contractor. So if you are interested in this but are uncertain of the capacity available at the premises, we can have that found out for you. And as mentioned previously, unrestricted access 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So any gated facilities either wouldn't be able to be considered, or we'd have to come to an agreement that they wouldn't be gated, they'd be unlocked. So the next steps, if you're interested in becoming a Plug-In Norfolk EVCP host, first off, please confirm your interest to Plug-In Norfolk's now contact, so that's Peter Strange. Norfolk County Council will then arrange for a site visit in the near future to assess the suitability of the site in question and to discuss options in more detail. This will all be on a non-committal basis, so there'll be no agreement up to the point that everyone is happy to proceed. And once we are all happy with a proposal, then we can make a proposal, agree it with yourselves, and the works will then be programmed. The Norfolk County Council will arrange for the installation and commissioning, and then Plug-In Norfolk will do the rest from there. So hopefully everyone will see this as an exciting opportunity. It's certainly a big step that we're looking to make for Norfolk County Council, for Norfolk as a county as a whole, and for all the parishes and any partners involved. Because as mentioned, we've got now 7 years until the ICE to electric switchover. The whole country, I think, is lagging behind on provision of EVCPs, and we are needing to catch up very quickly. So hopefully this will generate some interest, and thank you very much for listening. And if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to take those.
Anybody got a burning question they want to ask Kurt? Anything that could... Right. I see somebody in the middle there, RD Pinning. I don't know.
That's it. Hello there. I'm chairman of Ludham Village Hall. Obviously we would be interested in putting some points in, but we want to know what sort of cost will be involved to ourselves. We are a charity. We want to know what sort of cost. Do you cover all of the costs? Do we, if we recoup anything, do we recoup anything above the running costs of, i.e. cost per kilowatt hour? Do you charge extra so that some is paid back to the host, or what? You know, this is sort of questions that I've got to go back to our committee to answer, you know.
Yeah, well, firstly, thank you very much for asking your question. The first thing is regarding the installation. Certainly, we're aiming to make it no cost to the host, and as much as possible, we're also aiming to make it zero cost to the host for maintenance and for the ongoing running costs. Okay. With businesses, that would be a different arrangement, because with businesses, they're a commercial enterprise, and part of the requirement of the government funding is that we do need to look at having commercial relationships that are going to sort of be befitting with businesses. We can't really give everything to businesses at nil cost, because they'll be making a profit anyway, and we won't be able to use government funding simply to give them something. With local entities, with parishes and charities, that may be something completely different. So regarding the cost itself for charging the electricity, certainly reimbursement, we would look to make that nil cost to yourself. So any energy used would be reimbursed completely. With regards to over and above, our initial requirement for over and above would be to feed that back into Plug-In Norfolk, because as mentioned, we're looking to make a network of self-sustaining chargers. So the idea from us is not to turn a profit, because really as local authorities anyway, it wouldn't be profit, it's revenue, I suppose, but we're looking to put it back into the model so we benefit the community with an EV network that it can rely on. So that, you know, if something breaks down, the onus isn't on the host to get that fixed or anything. It's something that comes centrally, so the whole thing looks after itself. I'll take your question back to my manager, who's back next week, and see if he can put any further detail on that. But I hope what I've told you for now is something of an answer.
You've answered the questions. You know, obviously it's providing a service, but it's whether anything could be gained from that to help towards, you know, a charity such as we are, to improve things. You know, you're going to have people using your car park, etc.
No, I understand completely.
You know, so that's really the idea behind it, not to make a massive profit. It's what the idea is, to cover your costs and maintenance costs that you're going to incur from people using your car parks.
No, I understand completely. I mean, it's important that you've pointed out the not making a massive profit issue, because that's absolutely not what we see EVPs for, because they even with the best will in the world, they're very unlikely to be commercially profitable. As I mentioned, what we want to do is have the system able to wash its face. So, but in terms of what you've mentioned, again, I'll take that back to my manager and see if he can tell me anything else other than what I've just told you now. So okay. I'll come back with an answer on that one next week.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Okay, we got a question in the chat, and then I see a couple of people with hands up. Richard's asking, you know, what is the rough timescale to be up and running? When would you hope to be, you know, getting these installations going?
Right, we have the funding now. The funding has been confirmed by central government. It's been transferred to us. We are in the middle of putting together a procurement framework so that we can avoid having to go quote by quote, site by site. So we're getting people on board, or companies on board, to make things easier for that. That procurement framework is aiming to be up and running by the end of this month. We would still need to go through processes such as having some more in-depth meetings with parishes, communities, village halls, to make sure they're happy with an arrangement that we can come to. So I'd estimate we'd still need a few weeks to do that. And then it's however long the quotes and the lead-in times for the installations take. But basically, for this first round, we certainly look to have installations overall made by the end of the year. But I'm not saying it would be the end of the year that we would start, or that one would happen. They'd be progressive throughout the year. I'd hope to be able to start them through the summer.
Okay, right, Sarah, you had your hand up first.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Can hear you fine, yeah.
Brilliant. I represent several small parish councils, some of whom are sole managing trustees for various, pavilions. Some have got village halls, which are, like the gentleman from Ludham, charity run. Is Plug-In Norfolk looking exclusively to deal with an agreement with parish councils? Because in some of them we don't actually have authority over the village hall, although parish councils work closely invariably with charity trustees. But so is it just agreements with parish councils that you're looking to broker, or would you be looking also to broker agreements with charities who own and manage village halls?
I don't think necessarily it has to be with parish councils. I think that was the ideal, was it be parish councils or businesses. But I think at this point we're open to discussions with all parties. I would probably need to speak to our in-house legal department just to make sure that what we're able to do with the government funding is on solid ground. But again, if it's an arrangement with a charity premises, and if there's no profit being turned, if it is just a case of charity premises is hosting the EVCP, we're managing it, administering it, I don't think there would be an issue. But again, I'll check for you and I'll come back to you. But I'm certainly open to discussions initially.
Obviously, the parish council could, have an agreement with the village hall and then with you and sort of be the person in the centre of that transaction. Yeah. But it would be far simpler, certainly in two of my parishes, I think, if it was directly with the village hall trustees. So thank you very much for that. I'll wait to hear further.
Yep. Right. Ken, you were next.
Yeah. The initial information we received prior to showing an expression of interest seemed to intimate that there may be 2 or 3 different options with these EV charging points. The option that we've been informed about today is purely one option. Excellent, zero cost to the parish council. We have a sports pavilion and a 10-acre field, electric supply, etc. So we'd be ideal in that respect. And the population of the area goes from 5,000 to 25,000 in the summer, so plenty of tourists as well. But we've also, over the last 12 years, before I was chairman of the parish council, running at a deficit. And we're looking at generating more income for the site in general. And we'd hoped that one of the options, based on the initial information, would be that maybe we could stand the cost of the installation and therefore glean the profit to subsidise the site. Is that option now not on the table?
I can't say with certainty it's not, but I think certainly the way that we are looking to run it first and foremost is almost as a turnkey provider to hosts. So again, I'll take this back to my manager and check with him. I think last summer when we were initially looking, because I think some of you expressed interest in the original Levi proposals last summer. We went for funding then, we didn't get it, we've come back. This is sort of a revisitation of our original proposals, which have been changed since then. Obviously, we did have the original information going out saying about a couple of different options. In the intervening period, we've looked to sort of refine them and bring them down to a sort of a single focus. I'll go back to my manager and I'll check and see whether or not there is an option to have an alternative that you've mentioned. But I think that first and foremost, we're looking, as I've said, to create a county-wide network, which is self-sustaining. So the best way of looking at that is to try and keep all the revenue that's being made from it internal, so it pays for itself, rather than necessarily external, where there's less of it to pay for itself and there's therefore more liability. And of course, let me find a firm answer and I'll come back to you for that.
And of course, just to interrupt there, Ken, a bit, there are other options other than the Plug-In Norfolk one that's being offered today. So, for example, Anglia Car Charging have a model where you would pay for the installation, and then there would be a profit sharing arrangement with the extra revenue that's made on the reselling of the electricity via the charging points. But that's not part of this Plug-In Norfolk proposal. But there are other models out there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Hill.
To me.
Yeah, sorry. Your subtitle says Hillcom and
I
Renningham.
don't see it on my screen, but don't worry about
All right, okay. I apologise, but
can I ask about insurance? Who covers that? Is that the council or is it yourselves?
Again, that's one which we've touched on previously in conversations when I've been discussing this with the internal team. I don't have a firm answer on that at the moment. I believe the premises owner would have to look at that. So that's my understanding is that would, if it's on your premises, it would be something that you would need to look at and see whether or not the insurance needs to be amended. As the cost of the charger and the cost of the maintenance and running costs are ongoing, something which is excluded from the finance that we have is anything like insurance. Basically, the grant funding that we've got is purely for the EVCP provision itself. It doesn't even, the grant funding we've got doesn't even actually cover the maintenance, which is why we're looking to put together a model where everything sustains itself. So I think there's very limited finance from that could come out to cover insurance. But again, I'll speak to my manager and check with that for certain. But my understanding is it would be on the premises host to look at that.
So if there's an increase in insurance, would that be covered by this scheme?
It's not something that I've seen factored in so far. So again,
Okay.
I'll have to check for certainty, but my first answer would be probably not.
Right. If there is a, I'll ask another way around. Is there a threshold for use? So if an installation doesn't meet that threshold, will it be withdrawn?
That's not something that we're considering at the moment. One thing that we do have to do is make sure that the installations are upkept. And that's part of the reason why we're looking at an overall model, because there are some which we're looking at with some of the other authorities, which may be in areas which are going to be more well used and therefore generate more of a revenue. And for areas where they're not as well used, where they're not necessarily washing their own face, we would look to take in revenue from the ones which are. So it's not a case, we've not discussed so far about the need to meet a certain threshold. It's just about making sure the model itself helps itself.
Right. So for us, we don't have to do a sort of a scaling exercise to see whether we would meet our own ambitious targets.
No, I mean, we'd look at that from our end, I think, anyway, just make sure and look at the suitabilities of any parishes who apply and see what we think is the likelihood of good usage in a parish. But at the same time, as I mentioned, because the model itself is aiming to be self-sustaining, any parishes which might be concerned that their EVCP isn't going to be as well used as elsewhere, we're still looking to draw upon funding from the other parish or from the other areas where they've been installed to try and make sure the whole thing is self-sustaining. So again, I'll take that concern back to my manager, but I'm not aware so far of a benchmark requirement.
Okay, and one last question. You said that the scheme would cover installation. Does that mean right back to the power board within a village hall?
Yes. So anything that requires the installation on the ground, the civil side of things, the connection into the village hall, yes, that will all be covered because that's all part of the cost that we get.
Right. So just to be sure, there is not a gap which would have to be made up by ourselves to cause it to happen. It was a complete turnkey system as you describe it.
Yeah, when we've had installers work so far and they've taken power off a village hall or a community centre, then the cabling and connection to the board of that place has always been included. So that's nothing which I anticipate you'd have to pick up yourself.
Okay, thank you. That's me done.
Thank you. Thanks.
Right, we've got a couple of questions in the chat. Excuse me. The first one of which you partially already answered, but Sarah's asking as a second question is, apart from the location requiring 2 spaces, are there any other minimum requirements for space, location of the charging unit, or is that the only limitation?
Well, the charges that we can look at are of different formats. So if there's a bit of a restriction on what's on the ground, or if the ground is unsuitable, then we can possibly look at wall-mounted chargers. Or having said that, I think anywhere that you need to park is going to have to be suitable enough. So I think as long as you can get 2 spaces in a suitable arrangement near to where you could put the charger, the main thing is just having somewhere suitable to site it. So two parking spaces. As mentioned, any car park used would have to be 24/7 unrestricted. And there needs to be no obligation to somebody visiting there to use the premises. It has to be accepted that if the charges are going to be there, then they need to be used by anybody.
Okay. I think that's clear. Right. Richard has posted, he says, I imagine each EVCP will have different contracts with electricity suppliers. Will you reimburse usage based on the actual rate, And if so, will you require us to invoice, which adds to the bureaucracy?
Good question. Again, this is one which I'll need to look at, because on previous arrangements that we've done, we have looked at it sort of case by case, but I don't know if we will look across the board at a single flat rate as an average, but I have mentioned previously that the last thing we want to do is leave anyone out of pocket. So again, let me come back to this, but yeah, any billing issues, we will look to take care as best we can at our end. So yeah, I'll have to find out for certain on that one, but my first answer would be that yes, we would have to look at this as to what the rate is actually being paid.
Yeah. Right, Ken, you've still got your hand up. Is that a new question, or is that a holdover from the last one?
Yes and no. Sorry, I forgot to remove it, but the previous questions just raised a question, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So will there be a separate meter for this car vehicle charging point, separate to the hall's main meter? Otherwise, how do you distinguish how much electric has been spent in lighting in the hall and how much has been spent on the car charger?
Most of the EVCPs that we've had installed and the ones we're familiar with have internal meters themselves. And the EVCPs as well, the back office system that we're using for Plug-In Norfolk has a usage system that shows how much electricity passes through the EVCP, so we'll know how much has been used by it.
Right, okay.
So it would be possible to separate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. I don't see any more hands going up, and I don't see anybody typing in the chat. So if anybody doesn't have any more burning questions, as I said, so if on the back of this meeting today, if you're still interested and would like to explore it a bit further, then by all means let me know, or you can contact Kurt direct. Both of our contact details are freely available. If anybody doesn't currently have them, then again come back to me, and I can provide those. I will be hosting the presentation again on the website, as I said earlier. So if you want to go back and have another look or rethink things over, and we will be posting this webinar, this meeting again on the website. So you can revisit things that have been said here. I think generally what I would observe is that there is a real push from central government that there needs to be much more rollout of the charging points, and whilst it is a bit chicken and egg, do you roll out the charging points first, or do you get people to buy vehicles? I think the government is quite keen to provide the funding and to overcome the hurdles that might be in the way of doing that. It doesn't necessarily mean that every location is going to be possible, but it does mean there is a general willingness, I think, both at county level and at central government level to make this happen. So it's better to have the conversations and try and get over any problems there might be in the way and trying to make this happen. Right, Ken, you've got your hand up. I think to make another.
Yes, we've got a parish council meeting tonight, and obviously this will have to go before the parish council meeting. I've completely lost the thread of the question I was got, because I was listening intently to what you were saying. Oh dear, where was I with this?
What I always say to my kids is think about something else and it'll come back.
The question, I'll come back to you.
Yeah, good. Well, you can always, if anybody thinks of any questions, on the back of this, or things will occur to you. I'm sure, after you've left today, contact me, contact Kurt, and we'll try to answer them as best we can. Right, Ken, you obviously come back to you now.
Yes. The question I was going to ask was, is it possible that you could email us the PowerPoint presentation?
I can certainly arrange to do that. I've got a copy on my machine, so I'll send you out a copy.
If you could, thank you.
Yeah.
Then I can demonstrate this take it to the parish council meeting, so that the decision can be made in the knowledge that they're aware of everything.
Lovely. Can you just pop your email in the chat, Ken, so I can make sure I've got the right one to go to.
Yeah.
If anybody else would like it, then again pop it in the chat, and I can send that out directly. Yeah. So if you want a copy, can you put your emails in the chat as well, so I don't have to go and look for them. Okay. Right, if nobody else has any burning questions or observations, I would just say thank you very much for taking the time to come out and attend this afternoon. And I hope you're all looking forward to the next few weeks as we head towards reconstituting the parishes and town councils again as from May.
Thank you everyone for
Thank you.
attending. Really do
Very
appreciate
nice,
it.
thank you.
And, yeah, hopefully I can get some further answers to you as soon as possible. Pete, do you have a minute to stay on afterwards, please?
Yeah. If we stay on afterwards, then I can make sure that I've got all the copies of the emails and what have you, so I know who to send stuff out to.